I shot my sister in the chest on our family's annual Labor Day barbecue, right there in the backyard of our childhood home in suburban Connecticut, with Dad's old Remington shotgun propped against the grill like it was just another prop in this twisted American dream. The bullet didn't kill her, hell. It barely grazed her, tearing through the silk of her sundress and embedding in the oak tree behind, but the blood that bloomed on her chest like a 4th of July firework was the first real crack in the facade we'd all been pretending to live under. And as she crumpled to the grass, gasping like a fish on dry land, I felt nothing but the cold rush of finally pulling the trigger on 15 years of buried lies, her betrayal slithering out like smoke from the barrel. It started, like all good Southern Gothic nightmares transplanted to the Northeast, with a secret too heavy for one person to carry. I was 18, fresh out of high school in that sticky summer of 2008, when the economy was tanking harder than my parents' marriage, and Elena, my Golden Girl sister, 2 years older and already slinging cocktails at some dive bar in Stamford to fund her art school dreams, got herself knocked up by the wrong guy. Not just any wrong guy, Tommy Hargrove, the married assistant DA from the next town over, with a wife who chaired the PDA and kids who won blue ribbons at the county fair. Elena was wild back then, all firecracker energy and zero impulse control. The kind of girl who'd sneak out to raves in abandoned warehouses while I buried myself in AP Bio textbooks, dreaming of escaping to Yale on a full ride. But when she showed up at my bedroom door one humid July night, her mascara running like black rivers down her cheeks, clutching a drugstore pregnancy test like it was a grenade, I didn't hesitate. "Abby," she sobbed, collapsing onto my twin bed with its faded Laura Ashley quilt. "I can't do this. Mom and Dad will kill me. Tommy says he'll lose everything." Lose everything? That was rich coming from a man who'd already taken everything from his family. I held her while she cried, my own heart pounding like a bass drum at a football game. And by dawn, we'd hatched the plan. The stupid, selfless, sisterly plan that would chain me to her sins for the rest of my life. I'd take the fall. Pretend it was mine. We'd stage it. Tell Mom and Dad I'd been seeing some boy from the debate club, gotten careless at a party. Elena would support me through the abortion, play the doting big sister, and we'd bury the truth deeper than the foundation of our McMansion. It wasn't just about protecting her dreams. Elena had this fragile ego, convinced she was destined for gallery walls in Soho, not diaper changes in a trailer park. No. It was about us against the world, blood thicker than the ink on Tommy's law degree. I was the good one, the fixer, the Abigail, who always cleaned up the mess. So I did. I sat through the family meetings, the disappointed stares from Dad over his morning coffee, the hushed prayers from Mom at St. Mary's. I skipped my senior prom to recover in secret, whispering lies to my best friend Sarah about a stomach bug, while Elena partied harder than ever, her belly flat and her conscience flatter. Fast forward a decade, and here I am, 33, standing in a Manhattan bridal boutique that smells like money and desperation, trying on a Vera Wang that costs more than my first car. Life had a way of papering over the cracks, didn't it? After the abortion, quick and clinical in a Planned Parenthood clinic up in Bridgeport, with Elena holding my hand like we were in some Lifetime movie, I threw myself into college, then law school at Fordham, clawing my way up to junior associate at a mid-tier firm specializing in family law. Irony's a bitch. I met David at a networking mixer in 2019, right before the world shut down for COVID. He was the all-American type, broad-shouldered ex-lacrosse player from Greenwich, now a rising star in finance at Goldman Sachs, With a laugh that could disarm a jury and eyes that promised stability I'd craved since Mom walked out on us in 2012, citing Dad's endless golf weekends as her breaking point. David didn't know about the abortion. No one did. Except Elena. We'd sworn a blood oath under the willow tree in our backyard. Pinky promises sealed with stolen Marlboros. She'd moved to Brooklyn after art school flopped, ended up waitressing at trendy spots in Williamsburg, dating a string of hipster musicians who ghosted her faster than a bad Tinder match. But she was still my sister, the one who'd crash on my couch during her quarter-life crises, spilling wine and secrets while I listened. Always the rock. Until she started flipping the script. It began subtly. Those little barbs at family dinners. Abby's always been the responsible one, she'd say with that sly smile. Her green eyes, mirror images of mine, flicking like a snake's tongue. Carrying the weight of the world on those broad shoulders. David thought it was sibling ribbing. Charming, even. But I felt the undercurrent. The way she'd linger too long when he complimented her bohemian vibe. By the time we got engaged last fall, down on one knee at the top of the rock, city lights twinkling like fallen stars, she was already circling. Invites to her gallery openings that were just pop-up flea markets. Texts at 2 a.m. about needing advice on a guy, always with a photo of some chiseled jawline that screamed David's type. I ignored it. Buried it. Like I buried that pregnancy test in the backyard compost heap. Weddings make monsters of us all. Right? The planning consumed me. 200 guests. A band from Jersey. Caterers slinging lobster rolls and craft IPAs. Elena was my maid of honor. Of course. Who else? She'd cooed when I asked, hugging me tight enough to bruise. But 2 weeks before the big day, I found the first thread unraveling. A late-night scroll through her Instagram. God, why do we do that to ourselves? And there it was, a story from a rooftop bar in the East Village. Her arms slung around David's neck. Both of them laughing over neon-lit cocktails. Caption: Old friends catching up. NYC nights, sister secrets. My stomach dropped like the elevator in the Empire State Building. I confronted him the next morning over oat milk lattes in our Tribeca loft. It was nothing, babe, he said, eyes wide with that boyish innocence. She reached out about venue ideas. We grabbed a quick drink. You know how she is, harmless flirt. Harmless. The word stuck in my throat like a fishbone. I wanted to believe him. Needed to. With the dress alterations looming and Mom flying in from Florida with her new yoga instructor husband. But Elena? She texted me an hour later. Eggplant emoji. Hard eyes. Don't be paranoid. Cease. He's all yours. Promise. Lies. They always start small, don't they? By rehearsal dinner. The cracks were fissures. She showed up late, reeking of weed and Chanel No. 5. Her dress a slinky number that hugged her curves like a second skin, curves she'd flaunted since we were teens, while I hid behind cardigans and straight-A report cards. Dad pulled me aside in the hotel lobby, his breath sour with scotch. Watch her. Abby. Elena's always been slippery. Slippery. That was the word for it. The way she'd slide out of consequences, leaving me to mop up the spill. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. David snored softly beside me, his hand on my hip like an anchor. I slipped out to the balcony, the Hudson River glittering below like fool's gold, and called her. No answer. Instead, a voicemail from 1:17 a.m., her voice slurry. Seductive. Abby. Baby sis. You deserve this. But just remember, I carried you through that summer. We're even now. Even? The word ignited something primal. A spark from that willow tree oath. What the hell did she mean? Dawn broke gray and unforgiving. The kind of September light that promises autumn but delivers humidity instead. I stood in the bridal suite of the Pierre Hotel, surrounded by my bridesmaids, Sarah from college, David's sister Lisa, a couple of work friends, zipping into the gown that made me feel like a ghost in lace. The mirror reflected a woman I barely recognized, cheekbones sharp from stress dieting, eyes shadowed despite the Bobbi Brown concealer. "You look stunning," Sarah whispered, adjusting my veil.
Stunning.
Or stunned. The ceremony was at noon. St. Bart's on Park Avenue. All stained glass and echoes of old money. Guests filed in, David's wasp family in pastel seersucker. My ragtag relatives from Hartford clutching Kate Spade clutches like life rafts. Elena was last to arrive. Of course. I waited in the narthex, heart hammering like a gavel, when the door swung open and there she was, striding down the aisle not in the soft lavender chiffon we'd picked out together at Kleinfeld's, but in a blood-red gown that screamed harlot in a house of God. Halter neck, floor length, slid up to her thigh like a Vegas showgirl crashing a cotillion. The organ swelled with Pachelbel's canon, but the jaws dropped harder than the beat. Gasps rippled through the pews like a Mexican wave at Yankee Stadium. Mom's hand flew to her pearls, Dad's face purpled like overripe plums. David, waiting at the altar in his tux,
Froze mid-smile,
his eyes darting from her to me like a man caught in crossfire. And Elena? She walked with the poise of a runway model at Fashion Week, bouquet of black calla lilies clutched like a weapon, her lips curved in that trademark smirk, the one that said, "I dare you." I stood there, veil trembling in the AC draft, the weight of 15 years crashing down. This wasn't just a wardrobe malfunction. This was declaration of war. Betrayal. Served couture style on my wedding day. And as the congregation whispered, "What the hell?" in that hushed Episcopalian tone, I realized the secret we'd buried wasn't dead. It was clawing its way up, dressed to kill. The aisle felt like a runway to my own execution as Elena sauntered past the front row, her heels clicking on the marble like gunfire in a Tarantino flick. Aunt Rita from Mom's side, the one who'd always favored Elena's artistic temperament with extra Christmas cash, let out a strangled, "Oh, honey," that hung in the air thicker than the incense from the thurible. David's mother, Evelyn, a Park Avenue dragon in her Chanel suit, crossed her arms and shot me a look that said, "Control your family, Abigail." But I couldn't. Not anymore. The organist faltered, missing a chord, and the whole church tilted on its axis. 200 pairs of eyes swiveling between the scarlet serpent and the white-clad lamb. Elena reached the altar steps, turning to face me with eyes that glittered like shattered emeralds. "Surprise," she mouthed. "Just for me," before sliding into the maid of honor spot like she owned it. The officiant, a bland-faced rector named Father Michaels, who'd married David's parents back in '85, cleared his throat into the mic. "Dearly beloved," he began, but his voice cracked like dry toast. I forced my legs to move, one foot in front of the other, the train of my gown whispering secrets to the floor. David's face was a mask of confusion, his best man brother clapping him awkwardly on the back as if to say, "Buckle up,
bro."
By the time I reached him, the air hummed with tension, the kind that precedes a summer storm over Long Island Sound. We exchanged vows in stilted whispers, in sickness and in health. For richer or poorer, while Elena stood there, a crimson sentinel, fiddling with her bouquet like she was plotting her next move in a game of three-dimensional chess. Rings slid on, rice thrown prematurely by some kid in the back, and then the recessional. As we turned to face the crowd, Elena looped her arm through mine, and leaned in close enough for only me to hear. "You look beautiful."
Cease.
But red's always been my color. The reception was a minefield disguised as a cocktail hour at the hotel ballroom. Fairy lights strung like nooses from the ceiling. A string quartet sawing away at "Marry You" by Bruno Mars like nothing had happened. But everything had. Guests clustered in knots. Phones out. Liv tweeting the drama. Wedding gate, sister slay. Sarah cornered me in the powder room. Her bridesmaid dress rumpled from hugging me too tight. "Abby, what the actual fuck? Is she on something? Or is this some performance art bullshit?" I stared at my reflection. Lipstick smudged from David's "I love you" kiss that tasted like panic. "It's Elena being Elena," I muttered.
But even I didn't buy it.
This was calculated. A middle finger wrapped in silk. David pulled me onto the dance floor for our first spin, his hands clammy on my waist. "Babe, ignore her. She's jealous, always has been." Jealous? Of what? Exactly? The man I'd built a life with. Brick by Suburban Brick? We swayed to Ed Sheeran, the crowd forming a loose circle. But my eyes kept drifting to Elena. She was holding court at the bar, surrounded by David's frat boy cousins and a gaggle of my law firm colleagues, her laugh cutting through the chatter like a switchblade. Tommy Hargrove was there too. Jesus. Tommy, older now, paunchy in an ill-fitting suit, his wife nowhere in sight. He clapped David on the back, muttering about old times, and Elena shot him a wink that curdled my champagne. Halfway through the chicken francaise, it escalated.
Dad.
3 whiskeys deep, stood to toast, his glass wobbling like his resolve. "To Abigail and David, may your life together be as solid as." He trailed off, glaring at Elena. As some people's sense of decorum. The table tittered nervously, but she rose like Venus from the half-shell, red dress pooling around her stool. Here, she purred, microphone in hand from God knows where. To Abby, who's always been the strong one. The one who carries secrets so deep, they'd sink a lesser woman. The room went pin-drop silent. David squeezed my knee under the linen, but I felt it, the pull of that summer, the weight I'd shouldered alone. She wasn't done. "Remember that summer?"
Cease.
"The one where you got sick? We all thought it was mono. But nah, you were saving the day." "As usual." Gasps again. Sharper this time. Mom's face blanched. Aunt Rita choked on her escargot. Tommy shifted in his seat, eyes darting to the exit. Elena leaned into the mic, voice dropping to that husky timbre she used for bad poetry readings. "David, you're lucky. Abby's a keeper. She's taken hits for all of us, family hits. You know." And there it was. The bomb detonated. Shrapnel of implications slicing through the air. Not the full truth, no. She was too sly for that, but enough to poison the well. I bolted from the table, veil trailing like a surrender flag, bursting into the service corridor where waiters wheeled carts of tiramisu. David found me there, slumped against a dumbwaiter, tears carving hot paths through my foundation. What did she mean? Abby? Secrets? That summer? His voice was raw, the finance bro polish cracking. I wanted to tell him, spill it all. The clinic walls smelling of bleach, The way Elena had whispered "thank you" as we drove home in Dad's old Buick. But the word stuck. "It's nothing," I lied, echoing his earlier dismissal. "Family bullshit." "She's always stirring the pot." He pulled me close. But the embrace felt like quicksand. "We can't let her ruin this."
Ruin?
It was already ashes. By cake cutting. Elena had vanished, poof. Like a bad magic trick, leaving a note on my gift table. "Congrats.
Cease.
Call me when you're ready to even the score."
Love. A.
Even the score. That's when the rage ignited. Not hot and flashy, like her dress, but cold, methodical, the kind that simmers in boardrooms and backroom deals. The next morning, hungover on mimosa regret, David and I flew to St. Bart's for our honeymoon. White sands,
Turquoise waters.
the whole colonial fantasy. But paradise was a prison. He scrolled his phone obsessively, reading the group chats blowing up with speculation. Was the sister drunk?
Is there tea?
Elena had posted a cryptic story, black screen, white text, "Blood is thicker than vows." I smashed my phone against the villa's teak headboard, shards scattering like confetti from a failed party. "She's trying to destroy us," I hissed to David, who nodded but his eyes said doubt. That night, under mosquito netting that felt like a shroud, he rolled over and asked, point blank, "Were you pregnant?" Before we met, the truth clawed at my throat, but I swallowed it. It was a long time ago. A mistake I covered for her. Half-truth. Still a lie.
He sighed.
Pulling me close. We all have pasts,
Abby.
but no more secrets. No more. Famous last words. Back in New York 2 weeks later, the city had moved on, Wall Street roaring, leaves turning in Central Park, but our marriage was a ghost town. Elena had gone radio silent. Her apartment in Bushwick sublet to some SoundCloud rapper. I threw myself into work, drafting prenups for strangers while mine frayed at the edges. David started staying late at the office. Team building, drinks that stretched to midnight. And then, the text started. Not from her, from him. Innocent at first, Elena says hi. Ran into her at the gym. The gym?
Our gym.
Equinox in Flatiron. I hacked her email, child's play for family lawyer with too much time and rage. What I found wasn't just flirtation, it was a full-blown affair. Timestamps syncing with his late nights. Hotel receipts from the Ace in Soho. Deleted but recoverable. Photos. Her in lingerie that matched the red dress. Him with that guilty grin. The betrayal wasn't singular, it was layered. A Russian doll of deceit. She'd seduced him to even the score, paying back my sacrifice with his heart.
But why?
Digging deeper, I uncovered the real venom, Tommy Hargrove. Turns out, Elena had rekindled with him post-art school flop. Gotten pregnant again this time. She kept it.
Elles
5 years old. Hidden away in a Jersey suburb with a nanny. Tommy footing the bills while his official family played house. And me? I'd been the decoy. The patsy who took the fall for the first one. Ensuring Tommy's career stayed spotless. Elena's note from the wedding? It wasn't just taunt, it was threat. Even the score meant dragging me down so she could rise. Using David as leverage to force Tommy into legitimizing their kid. Memos in her inbox. Marry the sister. Get the promotion. Then we expose. David knew. He'd been in on it from a mixer. A ladder-climbing scheme wrapped in wedding bells. The realization hit like a subway train at rush hour. Revenge wasn't a choice, it was oxygen. I started small. Anonymous tips to Tommy's wife. Screenshots mailed in plain envelopes. Her divorce filing made headlines, DA's double life exposed, and Elena's world cracked. She called me then. Voice breaking over bad connection. Abby, you bitch. You ruined everything. Everything? I laughed, the sound foreign in my throat. You started it.
Cease.
On my wedding day. But she flipped again. Scheming bitch that she was. A week later, she showed up at my office. Son in tow, a towhead boy with Tommy's nose, begging. He's yours too, in a way. Help me. Controversial? Hell yes. Part of me, the fixer, the sister, wavered. David filed for separation that night, citing irreconcilable differences, but whispered in my ear, "We can fix this. For the family." Family. The word tasted like arsenic. I drove to Connecticut that weekend, shotgun in the trunk, not to kill, but to confront. The barbecue was in full swing, rib smoking, cousins tossing frisbees, the illusion of normalcy. Elena was there, red dress swapped for denim cutoffs, playing the prodigal. When she saw me, gun in hand, she froze mid-laugh.
Abby.
The shot rang out, grazing her as planned, a warning, not an end. She fell, clutching her side, and the party scattered like roaches. Dad rushed over, face ashen. What have you done? What had I done? Avenged. But as sirens wailed in the distance, Elena's eyes met mine, not hate, but something worse, understanding. We're the same, she whispered. Same?
No.
But close enough to damn us both. The paramedics swarmed our backyard like locusts on a cornfield, their blue gloves snapping against the late summer dusk. Elena's wail cutting through the chaos sharper than the shears Dad used for his rose bushes. I stood there, Remington dangling from my numb fingers, the barrel still warm against my palm like a lover's fevered skin. Cops cuffed me before the Jell-O salad even hit the picnic tables. Reading Miranda rights in that flat NYPD drone while neighbors peered over fences, phones aloft like pitchforks in a digital witch hunt. You have the right to remain silent. Silent? I'd been silent for 15 years. Swallowing her sins like communion wafers gone sour.
Now.
The truth was vomiting out, messy and unstoppable. They booked me at the Stanford precinct. Fingerprints smudged with gunpowder residue and barbecue sauce, irony's greasy fingerprint all over it. David bailed me out at dawn, his face gaunt under the fluorescent buzz. Tie askew like he'd slept in the waiting room. Abby. What the fuck? He hissed as we drove back to the city in his Audi. Rain sluicing the windshield like tears we couldn't afford. I stared at the dashboard, the GPS chirping directions to a life we'd never reach. She took everything.
David.
You let her. He gripped the wheel white-knuckled, jaw clenching like he was calculating interest rates on regret. It was business. Tommy promised the partnership. We were going to tell you after the wedding. Business. That's what our vows were reduced to. A merger gone hostile. Elena survived the bullet. Of course, grazed rib.
No vitals.
The ER doc said later. Like it was a fender bender on I-95. She spun the narrative faster than a Beltway lobbyist, victim of a family dispute, me the unhinged sister with a grudge. By Monday, TMZ had it. Bride turns bridezilla. Wedding shooter sought revenge over fiancé fling? With pap shots of her leaving the hospital in oversized sunglasses. Little Tommy Jr. clutching a Build-A-Bear. The kid. God. The kid. He stared at me in that one blurry photo. Big eyes, accusatory. Like I'd shot his future. Not her arm sling. My firm suspended me pending investigation, self-defense or assault. The partners debated over conference calls I wasn't privy to. Mom called from Florida, voice quivering like palm fronds in a gale. Abigail Marie. What would Jesus do?
Jesus.
He'd flip tables too. Last I checked.
Dad went silent.
Golfing his way through the scandal at We Burn Country Club, whispering to his buddies about the girls' old issues. Old issues. Like it was a subscription to Vanity Fair, not a lifetime of cover-ups. Elena flipped again. That chameleon skin of hers molting into martyr mode. She lawyered up with Tommy's old firm, conflict of interest be damned, and filed a restraining order, painting me as the volatile one who'd always resented her success. Success? Waiting tables at age 32 while mooching off a married man's guilt money? But the press ate it up, scorn sisters shooting spree. Protests even, feminists outside the courthouse chanting sisterhood over bloodshed, as if I hadn't bled for her first. I holed up in our loft, no. My loft now. David's suits vanished like smoke from a back alley deal, nursing a bottle of Napa Valley cab and plotting. Revenge isn't a straight line. It's a labyrinth. All dead ends and mirrors reflecting your own monstrous face. I started with the kid. Not harm, never that, but exposure. Hired a PI. Ex-NYPD with a nose like a bloodhound and rates that drained my 401k. He dug up Elena's trail. Fake W-2s. Welfare checks under aliases. A string of evictions from Bed-Stuy to Beacon. And the boy, real name Elias Hargrove. Birth certificate listing father unknown, but DNA didn't lie. Tommy had paid for private school in Montclair. Tutors. Even a pony at summer camp.
Pony.
While I'd scrubbed toilets at summer jobs to fund my own escape. The PI's report landed like a gut punch. Elena had pitched David on a family plan. Marry me. Get the promotion. Then divorce and rescue her and the kid. Painting me as the villain who drove him away. Emails. Voicemails. She's too vanilla.
Babe.
I'm the fire you need. David's replies. It's just till the ink dries.
Vanilla.
That's what I was. The safe bet in sensible pumps while she burned bright and toxic. I leaked it selectively. Not to the tabloids. That'd be too easy. Too public. To Tommy's wife first. The scorned one who'd already lawyered up for alimony that could fund a small nation. She forwarded it to her attorney, who subpoenaed David's texts in her case. Boom, finance bro in crossfire, affair with shooter's sister. His firm relieved him of duties, bonus gone. Reputation torched. He showed up at the loft one rainy Tuesday. Soaked and desperate. Abby.
Please.
I love you. It was a mistake. Love. The word hung between us like a noose. I handed him the PI report, watched his face crumple. Get out, I said, voice steady as a closing argument. Or I send this to the DA. He left, tail between his legs, but not before whispering, You're becoming her. Her. The flipper. The schemer.
Was I?
Nights blurred into dawn. Me pacing the hardwood. Shotgun cleaned and oiled on the kitchen island like a talisman. Elena reached out through a burner app. Truce? For Elias. Truce? I met her in neutral territory. A Starbucks in White Plains. Far from prying eyes. She looked gaunt. Sling off but scars fresh. The boy coloring at a corner table with crayons that snapped under his grip. He asks about you, she said.
Stirring her soy latte.
Aunt Abby. The one with the pretty dress. Pretty dress. The wedding gown hung in my closet like a shroud, unworn since the dry cleaning tag mocked me. What do you want?
Elena.
She leaned in, eyes wet but sharp. Tommy's cutting me off. Divorce is dragging. David's ghosting. Help me fight for the kid.
Fight.
The word twisted in my gut. Part of me, the old Abigail, the one who'd lied for her, softened. Controversial as hell. Was I obligated? Blood debt from that summer. The clinic's sterile hum echoing in my ears. I'd killed a piece of myself for her freedom. Did that bind me to her spawn? But the fixer in me calculated risks. One condition, I said. Full truth. To David. To Mom. To everyone. She nodded. Too quick. That snake's smile flickering. Liar. I knew it in my bones. But I wired her rent money anyway. Watched her hug the boy tighter as we left. Mistake? Or masterstroke? The climax brewed slow, like a nor'easter off the coast. Tommy's trial, divorce turned criminal. Fraud allegations for hiding assets hit the docket in federal court. Downtown Manhattan.
Elena testified.
Playing the duped single mom. Tears glistening under the lights. David was there, subpoenaed, looking like a kicked puppy in off-the-rack Brooks Brothers. I sat in the back row, anonymous in a pantsuit and shades, heart pounding like a war drum. Then she flipped again. On the stand, under oath, she named me. Abigail knew everything. She covered for my first pregnancy to protect Tommy's career. Shot me to silence me when I threatened exposure. The courtroom erupted, bailiff banging gavel like thunder. Tommy's lawyer pivoted, cross-examining her into knots. So your sister committed perjury for you?
Perjury.
That's what it was. Signing those false affidavits for the clinic. The family cover story. My name trended, Abby the accomplice, law degree in jeopardy. Bar complaint incoming. David caught my eye from the witness box. Plea in his gaze, help. But I was done helping. That night, I drove to her Jersey hideout. Uninvited. Rain lashing the windshield like accusations. She opened the door in yoga pants. Elias asleep on the couch behind her. Paw Patrol flickering blue. What now? She sneered. But fear edged her voice. I didn't have the gun, left it with a locksmith for disposal, but words were weapons enough. You win, I said, stepping inside. I'll testify for you. Say it was self-defense, that you provoked me. Her eyes widened, calculating. Why? Because the twist was mine now. In the deposition I'd prepped and signed, but damning, I'd detailed her scheme. David's complicity. Tommy's payoffs. Insurance, I told her. In case you flip again. We hugged then.
Tentative?
The scent of her patchouli mixing with the boy's baby shampoo. Sisters. But as I left, key copied from her purse burning in my pocket, I knew this was check, not checkmate. The trial dragged into winter, snow blanketing the city like lies piling up. Elena got her settlement, Tommy caved. Custody shared, alimony flowing like the East River. David slunk back, begging reconciliation over egg creams at Russ and Daughters. We can start over. Therapy. Couples retreat in Napa. Tempting. The American dream repackaged, forgiveness as currency. But I saw the strings, his eyes flicking to his phone. Her number still saved as do not answer. And me, charged with assault. But her testimony, provocation, family trauma, got it reduced to misdemeanor. Probation. The bar cleared me after character witnesses, Sarah. Mostly. Clean slate? Bullshit. Scars don't fade. They just get make-upped for court. Elena invited me to Thanksgiving at the new Montclair split level. Tommy's money buying forgiveness. I went. Pie in hand. Shotgun memory tucked away. The table groaned with turkey and tension. Her.
Me. The boy.
Even Mom via Zoom from her yoga ashram. Toasts to new beginnings. But under the linen.
Elena's faute bruched mine, accidental?
Or signal.
Dessert wasp qu'un pied à la mode.
The kind Mom used to make with canned filling and store-bought crust. But Elena's version screamed Pinterest perfection, lattice-topped. Spiced with star anise from some bougie Whole Foods in Montclair. Elias smeared his slice across his high-chair tray, giggling as the cinnamon dusted his cherub cheeks like freckles from a benevolent god. Aunt Abby. Play horsey, he lisped, sticky hands reaching for me. I hoisted him onto my lap, bouncing him gently, his weight of foreign warmth against my ribs, the ribs that might have housed my own lost child, had fate not been rewritten in a Bridgeport waiting room. Elena watched from across the table, her smile soft but edged, like a knife wrapped in velvet. He likes you, she said, voice low. Always has. Always. The word looped in my head like a bad pop single on repeat, underscoring the farce we'd built. Mom's pixelated face on the iPad droned about chakras and third eyes, oblivious or willfully blind. Girls, I'm so proud. Healing is a journey. Healing. If only she knew the map we'd drawn was riddled with detours through hell, mine the straight-shot highway of sacrifice. Hers the switchback trails of self-sabotage. David texted midway through, miss you. Turkey's dry without you.
Dry.
Like his promises, desiccated under the heat of exposure. I deleted it, focused on Elias's laughter, a sound purer than any verdict. But purity's a myth in families like ours. Cracked china glued with denial. As we cleared plates, Elena pulled me into the kitchen, the stainless steel expanse gleaming like a surgical theater. Thanks for testifying, she murmured, rinsing forks under scalding water. Tommy's settling everything. We're good, me and Eli. We're good. The pronoun excluded me, deliberate as a prenup clause. I dried a wine glass, the towel twisting in my grip. And David, her shoulders tensed, suds bubbling like unspoken confessions. He's figuring it out. Wants to meet Eli. Thinks he can play stepdad or some shit.
Stepdad.
The image clawed at me, David in khakis, tossing a ball in some cul-de-sac. Elena in yoga pants playing housefrau. My stomach roiled.
Pie turning to lead.
You're not seriously. She turned, eyes flashing that old fire. Why not? He's got the money.
The charm.
You two were over anyway, your gun proved that. My gun. The one now rusting in evidence lockup, awaiting disposal like yesterday's news. Over? I echoed. Voice a whip crack. You seduced my husband to settle a score from a pregnancy I covered. That's not over, that's war. She laughed, bitter as black coffee.
Va?
Abby, you're the one who pulled the trigger. I just balanced the books. Balanced. The euphemism for her ledger of lies, my innocence for her ambition, David's ring for her redemption. Elias toddled and then, clutching a wooden spoon like a scepter, oblivious to the throne room intrigue.
Nana. Antebisad.
Elena scooped him up, nuzzling his curls.
No. Baby.
Aunt Abby's just complicated. Complicated. Code for culpable. The gray area where right and wrong blurred like rain on a windshield. I left before coffee. Citing traffic, bullshit. It was Sunday night. Highways empty as my promises to myself. The drive back to the city was a blur of sodium lamps and NPR static. My mind replaying the flips. Her tears in my bedroom that July night. The red dress, striding down the aisle. The courtroom oath that damned us both. Was she the villain? Or was I the enabler turned avenger? My hands as bloodied as hers? Readers, hell. Even I would pick sides. Argue till dawn in some dive bar. She deserved the shot. Versus blood's thicker. Forgive. But the real twist slithered in unannounced. 2 days later, as flurries dusted the loft's floor-to-ceiling windows. A manila envelope, no return address, slid under the door like contraband. Inside, ultrasound photos, grainy black and white echoes of a fetus at 12 weeks. And a note. Elena scrawl, your turn to carry. David's. From Napa. Remember? Napa. The couple's retreat he'd begged for. The one I'd skipped after the shooting. Sending him alone as space. She gone instead. Just to talk, his text had said.
Talk.
Leading to this. A secret I'd buried once for her. Now unearthed for me.
Pregnant.
The word hit like morning sickness at dawn. I'd suspected. Missed periods chalked up to stress. Nausea to bad takeout, but confirmation was a gut shot worse than the Remington's kick. David called that afternoon. Voice tentative over speakerphone as I paced the Persian rug. Abby. Elena told me. About the baby. We can do this, co-parent. Make it work.
Work.
Like our marriage. A job with shitty benefits. You mean she can do this? I snapped. With you as the white knight. Sweeping in for round 2. Silence. Then his sigh. World-weary. It's not like that.
She's
vulnerable. And the kid, our kid, deserves better. Our kid. Possessive. Like the loft. The dreams we'd pawned for ambition. Rage boiled over. But this time, no gun, just guile. I met Elena at the same White Plains Starbucks. Decaf chai in hand, the boy home with a sitter. She looked radiant. Hand on her barely there bump. That glow mocking my pallor. Twinsies, she quipped, stirring honey into her tea. Karma's a bitch.
Ha. Karma.
Or conspiracy. You planned this, I accused. Voice low over the hiss of the espresso machine. The seduction. The shooting bait, all to trap me here. Tied to your mess again. She sipped. Eyes unblinking. Or maybe it's fate.
Cease.
We're bound, you.
Me.
David. The kids. One big, fucked up American family.
Bound.
The word echoed the handcuffs. The clinic stirrups. The veil's lace chafing my neck. Controversial? Absolutely. Terminate? Fight for custody in a paternity circus? Co-parent with the serpent who'd worn my husband's ring like a noose? The options swirled. Each more divisive than the last. She owes you the truth. Keep the baby. Versus cut ties. Abort the poison. I chose the middle path. The one that'd spark bar and brawls and Reddit threads for years. Alliance. We raised them together, I said, extending a hand across the formica. No more flips. Full transparency, therapy, trusts. The works. Her grip was firm, nails digging like anchors.
Deal.
But David stays out unless we say.
We.
The pronoun included me now. A fragile truce in lipstick and lies. Months blurred, prenatal classes in a Soho studio. Elena and I side-eyeing each other over birthing balls, David sidelined to check-ins. His texts polite as corporate memos. Spring thawed the Hudson. My belly swelling alongside hers, mine a girl. Hers another boy. Echoes of our shared sin. The birth was twin labors in Mount Sinai's maternity ward. Screams harmonizing down sterile halls. David pacing the waiting room like a caged bull. Elena delivered first. Elias's brother named Theo, after some Greek myth of redemption. Mine came at midnight. Wailing under April rain. Isabella Marie. Eyes like mine. Fierce and unyielding. We didn't marry again, not me and David. Anyway, he got his partnership elsewhere. In Boston. Visiting weekends with toys and tentative hugs. Elena and I, we bought a brownstone in Harlem. Co-op dream funded by Tommy's hush money and my settlement from the firm. Wrongful termination. They called it. Controversial as hell. Two sisters. Ex-rivals turned co-moms. Raising 4 kids in a blended blender of betrayal and bomb. Critics called it toxic, enabling cycle, but we called it survival. American style. Messy. Litigious. Laced with dark humor over boxed wine. The twist? Isabella's first word wasn't mama, it was sissy, pointing at Elena across the playpen. Fate's last laugh. Or proof we were woven too tight to unravel.
Ending?
Not happy. Not tragic, just real. A barbecue in our backyard. Labor Day redux. Ribs smoking. Kids chasing fireflies. David grilling with forced cheer.
No guns.
Just guitars strumming Springsteen. Elena catches my over the coals. Raises her solo cup. To even scores.
I klink mine.
The liquid sloshing like unsettled debts. Even? Never. But close enough to call it peace. And as the sun dips, painting the sky bruise purple, I wonder, who's the villain here? With the trigger finger? Her. With the endless flips? Or us? Bound by blood and bad choices. In this endless loop of love and loathing, you decide. Hell. Argue it out, I'm done shooting.